Cole Barnes thought humiliating the quiet black girl in class would be his daily entertainment, until the moment Amina Lewis caught his attack mid-air, like she'd been waiting her whole life for someone stupid enough to try her. In a school built on privilege, mockery was easy, until the warrior they targeted finally opened her eyes. And when she moved, the entire room realized the predators weren't in control anymore. They were trapped with her. Want to know how fast a bully's world collapses when the truth hits harder than any punch? The first Monday rain of the semester drummed against the windows of Class 11B, turning the room gray and heavy. Students slouched in their seats, half awake, half bored, until the door opened and the new girl stepped inside. Amina Lewis, 16, quiet, expression unreadable. She took the empty desk in the far back corner without saying a word. She kept her backpack close, her posture straight, her eyes down. It should have been an ordinary introduction, a normal morning, but at Crestwood High, nothing that looked different ever stayed unnoticed. Cole Barnes, seated in the center row like a self-appointed king, immediately leaned back in his chair. His varsity jacket blazed bright orange, a warning sign of the untouchable status he held in this school. And he noticed Amina, more specifically, her thick coils of black curly hair tied in a loose puff. Cole smirked. "Oh, great," he muttered loud enough for half the class to hear. "We've got a jungle souvenir walking in." A ripple of snickering followed. Bryce lifted his phone instantly, ready to capture anything worth mocking. Jordan nudged him, whispering, "Get her reaction." "This is gold." Amina didn't look up. Not when Cole exaggerated fake monkey noises. Not when Bryce angled his phone directly at her face. Not when Jordan said with a grin, "Where'd they find you? Some broken-down neighborhood museum?" Her fingers curled under the table, knuckles whitening, but her breathing stayed slow. Controlled. Almost too controlled. They Duncan. Mr. Duncan tried to start the lesson, clearing his throat. "Settle down, everyone. Open your textbooks to—" But Cole wasn't done. He wanted attention. He wanted a laugh. He wanted to mark his territory. He grabbed an eraser from his desk, weighed it in his palm, and said to Bryce, "Record this. Watch how fast she flinches." Bryce lifted the phone higher. Cole flicked his wrist, sending the eraser flying through the air, straight toward the side of Amina's face. The class collectively inhaled, expecting a wince, a duck, or at least a startled recoil. Instead, time seemed to break. Amina's hand shot up, clean, precise, effortless. Two fingers snapped around the eraser mid-air as if she had been waiting for it. No hesitation, no stumble, no wasted movement. The room froze. Even the rain outside seemed to pause. Bryce's phone trembled in his grip. Jordan's jaw dropped. Mr. Duncan blinked at what he assumed must have been a trick of the light. But Cole felt something different, something that crawled up his spine and twisted inside his chest. It felt like humiliation. Amina slowly placed the eraser on her desk. She didn't raise her head. She didn't smirk. She didn't deliver a clever comeback. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than anything she could have said. Cole's voice cracked as he forced out, "No nai, nhan the quai nauve?" His usual swagger faltered. He'd thrown the eraser to embarrass her. Instead, he'd embarrassed himself. Publicly. He could feel the eyes of his teammates on him, waiting to see what he'd do. Waiting to see if the king of Crestwood High had just been dethroned by the quiet new girl in the back row. Cole clenched his fists. He couldn't let that stand. Not for a second. But Cole couldn't afford to let himself look weak. Not in front of the entire class. And the moment he stood up from his desk, the tension in the room shifted, promising that the next move would be far uglier. The hallway outside Class 11B was always loud during the mid-period break, lockers slamming, shoes squeaking, gossip bouncing between walls. But when Amina stepped out, the noise dimmed into a strange, expectant hush. Students parted instinctively, creating an open path down the corridor. Cole Barnes was waiting for her right in the middle of it. He leaned against the lockers with his arms crossed, fury carefully disguised under a smirk. Jordan stood beside him, bouncing a basketball lightly, scanning the hallway like a guard, making sure no one interfered. Amina walked forward, unbothered, her bag slung over one shoulder. Cole pushed himself off the locker. "You got something to say to me?" he demanded. "Like a sorry for your attitude back there?" Amina didn't stop walking. She didn't slow down. She didn't even lift her eyes. Her silence hit harder than any insult. Cole stepped directly into her path, blocking her way. "Hey, I'm talking to you." He jabbed a finger at her chest. "People don't ignore me." Still nothing. Just the rain tapping faintly against the hallway windows and the distant hum of chatter. Jordan grinned, seeing Cole's irritation rise. He reached back and quietly pulled the heavy sliding door closed at the end of the hall, then nodded to another teammate to close the opposite end. A sealed corridor, a private arena. A few students realized what was happening and stayed, whispering excitedly, phones slipping discreetly out of pockets. Cole leaned in, lowering his voice to a dangerous whisper. "You embarrassed me in there. You think catching an eraser makes you tough?" Amina met his eyes for a brief second. No fear, no apology, just stillness. It enraged him. "You're gonna learn your place," Cole growled. He grabbed the strap of her backpack and yanked. Or, rather, he tried to. What actually happened was so fast, the hallway gasped as one. The moment Cole's hand moved, Amina's head shifted smoothly to the side, like she anticipated the motion before it even fully began. Her body pivoted half an inch, just enough to slip entirely out of Cole's reach. He grabbed nothing but air. "Bro, what?" Jordan's eyebrows shot up. Cole blinked, stunned. He hadn't even seen her move. It felt like trying to catch smoke. Amina took a calm step back, gripping her bag, her expression unchanged. She wasn't fighting. She was simply not letting him touch her. The humiliation burned hotter than before. "Don't you walk away from me," Cole snapped. Amina remained still, but her gaze sharpened, quiet, assessing, like she was studying him with a patience he didn't deserve. Now Cole's face twisted into something darker. "You think you're better than me? You think you can just dodge me like that?" His voice cracked, loud enough for everyone watching. "Let's see how long you last when I'm actually trying." Jordan's eyes gleamed with anticipation. "Oh, this is gonna be good." Phones lifted. Whispers surged. The hallway tightened like a noose. Amina didn't move. She didn't raise her hands or brace herself. She simply stood there, calm in the storm, letting Cole's rage bounce off her like dull echoes, and that was what truly drove him insane. He wanted fear. He wanted trembling. He wanted the satisfaction of seeing her break, but instead, he was the one cracking. Cole stepped closer, his voice dropping into a low, vicious growl. "Do you think you're better than me? Let's see how long you can hold out." His hand curled into a fist, and in that moment, something in Cole snapped completely, pushing him toward a level of cruelty he hadn't unleashed yet. The girls' restroom at the far end of Building C was notoriously quiet, dimly lit, rarely cleaned, with one flickering bulb that buzzed like a dying insect. It was the place students went when they wanted to gossip without teachers overhearing. And that morning, the whispers were louder than usual. A group of 3 girls huddled near the sinks, their voices sharp and eager. "I swear she moved like some kind of witch." "No, like a monster. Did you see the way she caught that eraser? My cousin said she's from some violent neighborhood. They probably train kids to fight over scraps." Their words sliced through the stale air, filling the room with venom. The moment Amina stepped inside, the whispers stopped, but the glances didn't. They stared at her as if she were something dangerous, something unnatural. Amina ignored them. She headed for the last stall, her usual refuge, her backpack slipping slightly from her shoulder. She was tired, not physically, emotionally. The weight of silence could crush more effectively than fists, but before she closed the stall door, someone grabbed her wrist gently. "Amina?" It was Ruby, soft-spoken, freckled, nervously adjusting the cuff of her sweater. She wasn't part of the gossip crowd, but she'd heard enough to know trouble was brewing. Amina blinked. "Do you need something?" Ruby swallowed. "I saw Cole and the others following you earlier, and then Bryce." She took a breath. "He recorded the whole thing." Amina's shoulders tensed. "I know." "No, you don't," Ruby insisted. "He's planning to post it. The whole school will see it. They're twisting everything, saying you're some freak with powers." Amina exhaled slowly, leaning against the cold, tiled wall. For the first time she looked genuinely tired. "They can say what they want." Ruby hesitated. Something in Amina's voice felt too hollow, too controlled. "Are you okay?" Amina's eyes lowered. The flickering light above made shadows dance across her face. "I hate violence," she said quietly. "I hate everything it does to people." Ruby frowned. "But you didn't do anything violent." Amina shook her head. "That's not what I mean." She swallowed once, hard, as if pushing something painful down. "My brother, he died because of it." Her voice dropped into a whisper. "He was only 17. Ruby froze. "Amina, I'm so sorry. I didn't know." "No one here knows," Amina murmured, "and I wanted it to stay that way. I don't want to be part of that world anymore." For a moment, the restroom felt too small, too quiet. Even the gossiping girls at the sinks had gone silent, unintentionally listening. Ruby stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Then you have to be careful. Cole won't let this go." Before Amina could respond, a high-pitched notification sound echoed across the tiled walls. Ding, ding, ding. Phones buzzed everywhere, inside pockets, backpacks, hands. The gossip girls gasped first. "Oh my God, check your feed. Is that Bryce posted it? The video's up." Ruby's face drained of color. She pulled out her phone, scrolling with shaking fingers. There it was. Bryce's video had been uploaded to the school's main group chat. No privacy settings, no blurring, nothing. The title was stamped in bright red text. "New Freak in 11B. Watch her reaction when the king tests her." Hundreds of reactions flooded in. Laughing emojis, monkey emojis, cruel jokes, racist slurs. Ruby felt sick. "Amina, I'm so sorry." Amina stood completely still, eyes fixed on the grimy floor tiles. Her fingers twitched at her side, just once, a tiny, almost invisible sign of pressure building beneath the surface. Someone from the sinks snickered loudly. "Well, congrats," she said, waving her phone. "You're the school's new entertainment." Her voice echoed sharply. "You're the school's new source of entertainment." Ruby wheeled around, furious. "Shut up!" But Amina didn't react outwardly. She took one slow breath, then another. Calm. Quiet. Too quiet, Ruby whispered. "Amina?" Amina finally lifted her head, her eyes darker, sharper, carrying something dangerous beneath the calm. And none of them knew she had a limit they had just stepped over. By lunchtime, the entire school felt charged with a cruel electric energy. Students crowded near the basketball court behind the main building, where rumors said Cole Barnes had a show planned. And when Cole had a plan, the whole campus gathered like spectators waiting for a spectacle. Amina walked across the courtyard with her bag slung over one shoulder, each step steady, despite the whispers following her like shadows. Cole spotted her instantly. "There she is!" he shouted, waving his team forward. More than 20 students, mostly the basketball squad and their loyal followers, formed a loose circle around her. Some cheered, others pulled out their phones. The rest looked away, but didn't move, afraid of becoming the next target. Cole grinned wickedly and began swaying his arms in an exaggerated, mocking tribal dance. Bryce pounded on his chest like an ape. Jordan stomped around, pretending to perform some ridiculous ritual. The crowd roared with ugly laughter. Amina didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't move an inch. She stood rooted to the ground, rigid and silent, like a statue sculpted from iron. Only the slight tension in her shoulders hinted at the pressure building inside her. Tight, coiled, dangerous. Cole swaggered up to her, smile stretching cruelly across his face. "What's wrong? Cat got your tongue? Or is this how you people act when you're scared?" The group erupted again. Someone threw a crumpled paper ball at her. Another tossed a plastic bottle. Bryce circled her, filming every second. Amina remained still, but inside her chest something burned, something she kept buried deep, something she had promised never to unleash. Cole stepped closer, closing the gap until he was right in front of her, towering over her like a challenge. "You think you're tough because you caught an eraser?" he sneered. "You're nothing but a joke here." She didn't respond. Her silence was gasoline on his rage. Cole shoved her chest with both hands. Amina stumbled backward and fell. The crowd howled. "There!" Cole yelled triumphantly. "Look at her! See? She's just a clown." But before he could finish the sentence, something impossible happened. Amina's body twisted mid-fall, one hand hitting the ground first. She spun, pivoting on her palm, and pushed up in a single fluid motion. In less than a heartbeat, she was on her feet again, balanced, centered, poised. The movement was so sharp, so clean, so controlled that it defied logic. Like a dancer, like a fighter, like someone trained far beyond anything the school had ever seen. The laughter didn't stop. It choked. Students stared, frozen. Even the basketball team blinked in disbelief. Bryce lowered his phone for half a second. "Dude, what was that?" Jordan's eyes widened. "That kid, what the hell is she practicing?" Cole felt his stomach twist. That wasn't normal. That wasn't clumsy reflex or lucky timing. That was skill, real skill. Embarrassment crept up his neck, burning hotter than the sun overhead. She had stood back up before he had even processed pushing her. She had made him look weak. "Again," he snarled, stepping forward, chest heaving. "You think you can just get up like that in front of me?" Amina's gaze lifted slowly, calm, unshaken. But her eyes were no longer soft. They were sharp, focused. A warning. Cole didn't care, couldn't care. His pride was bleeding and his anger had grown teeth. He clenched his fists, shoulders rolling back as he prepared to move. He wasn't going to mock her anymore. He was going to hurt her. And with that decision, the crowd shifted nervously, the air signaling that the cruelty was about to escalate to something far more dangerous. The second-floor hallway of Crestwood High was unusually crowded for a mid-afternoon period. Students leaned against lockers, phones raised, whispers rolling back and forth like waves. They all knew what was coming. Cole Barnes had made sure of it. At the far end of the hall stood Amina, quiet as always, her backpack hanging from one shoulder. Ruby hovered several steps behind her, terrified but unwilling to leave. The air around them felt heavy, too still, too expectant. Then Cole appeared. His footsteps were loud, echoing off the lockers as he stormed toward her. His jaw was clenched, his face flushed with humiliation from the incident on the basketball court. Bryce trailed behind him with his phone recording, and two others started live-streaming the moment for the rest of the school. "All right, everybody," Cole announced, spreading his arms like a showman. "Time to end this stupid circus," students murmured, forming a semicircle around Amina. Amina didn't run, didn't flinch. She simply watched Cole approach, her expression unreadable. Ruby whispered urgently, "Amina, please, walk away. He's not thinking straight." But Amina didn't move. Cole stopped just inches from her. His shadow stretched long across the floor, swallowing the space between them. "You made me look like an idiot," he growled. "In front of my team, in front of the whole school." He tilted his head. "You know how we fix that?" Amina said nothing. Cole's hand shot up, palm open, fingers spread, ready to slap her across the face with all the force of his wounded pride. Every phone zoomed in, every breath caught. Even Ruby tensed, reaching forward as if she could somehow stop the moment. And Amina, she closed her eyes. Not in fear, not in weakness, but like someone who had been hit before, too many times, and had learned to brace, silently. Cole's hand swung downward in a vicious arc, but the impact never came, because Amina wasn't there. In a flash of motion so fast the cameras barely caught it, Amina pivoted her body a full 180 degrees. Her feet slid across the tiles with impossible precision, her weight shifting smoothly as she twisted out of Cole's reach. Cole's palms sliced through empty air. Before he could regain balance, Amina's hand rose gently, almost delicately, and tapped the inside of his wrist with 2 fingers. It wasn't a strike. It wasn't forceful. It was a precise redirection, perfectly placed. The effect was immediate. Cole stumbled forward, thrown off balance by his own momentum. His shoulders slammed into the lockers with a loud metallic clang. Gasps erupted all around the hallway. Bryce lowered his phone just long enough to shout, "Bro! Bro! What just happened?" Another student cried out, "What did he just do?" Ruby's eyes were huge, stunned. She had seen Amina move fast before. But this was something else. Something terrifyingly controlled. Cole staggered upright, breathing hard. His pride had been stabbed again, deeper, sharper, right where it hurt most. "You," he sputtered. "You think you can dodge me? You think you can embarrass me in front of everyone?" Amina didn't respond. Her silence, once again, cut deeper than any insult. Cole's face contorted. His fists shook at his sides. He was beyond angry now, beyond reason. He wasn't thinking, wasn't planning. His rage had swallowed every last bit of caution. Ruby whispered, trembling, "Amina, please get out of here." But Cole stepped forward again, his voice breaking with fury. "You're dead, you hear me? Dead. I'm going to make sure you never pull that stunt again." He had lost control. Completely, and the next move he made would be far more dangerous than a slap, because humiliation had turned into obsession, and Cole was ready to strike back twice as hard. The sports equipment room behind the gym was the one place where teachers almost never walked in after sunset. It smelled of old sweat, rubber mats, and metal racks that creaked whenever someone leaned on them. The single overhead bulb flickered, throwing long shadows across the stacked basketballs and dusty bleachers. Cole Barnes paced back and forth like a caged animal. Bryce and Jordan sat on a folded wrestling mat, while the rest of the basketball team lingered near the shelves, restless, unsure, but unwilling to oppose Cole's rising fury. Cole slammed his fist onto a crate of helmets. "Tomorrow," he hissed, "we finish this. I'm not letting that freak make me look weak again," Jordan cautiously asked. "So, what's the plan, man?" Cole stopped pacing. His breathing slowed, but the rage in his eyes sharpened into something colder. "We're going to humiliate her in class. Properly. In front of everyone." A sinister buzz ran through the room. Bryce leaned forward, tapping his phone like it was a weapon. "I can start another rumor tonight. Something big. Something that makes her look crazy." "Nah," Cole said. "Rumors aren't enough. She needs to feel it." He grabbed a marker and scribbled a crude sketch on the whiteboard, leaning against the wall. "Hide her backpack. 2. Tear the notebooks inside. 3. Break her desk chair. 4. Set everyone laughing before she walks in." Jordan whistled. "That's cold." Cole smirked. "Cold is the point." Minutes passed as the boys added more ideas. Stuffing her locker with garbage, spreading edited photos of her, making fake messages that made her look violent, getting the whole class to mock her in unison. But Bryce wasn't satisfied. He leaned back, crossing his arms smugly. "You want something that actually crushes her? I've got one more step." Cole raised an eyebrow. "Let's hear it." Bryce glanced at the others dramatically, then lowered his voice. "We get her to snap. Push her until she reacts. Then we record it." His eyes gleamed. "She hits you once, just once, and she'll get expelled. You win. She disappears." A slow, vicious smile curled across Cole's lips. Jordan nodded eagerly. "Dude, that's genius." Cole tapped the board. "That's the final move. The knockout. The rest is just warming up." But then he added something no one expected. "We're not doing this alone." The room quieted. Even Jordan frowned. Cole pulled out his phone, scrolling until he found a specific contact. Principal Hale. Bryce gaped. "Wait, you talked to Hale?" Cole shrugged like it was nothing. "After the hallway incident, I went to his office. Told him this new girl is trouble, that she could hurt someone." He made air quotes mockingly. "He loves the basketball team. Thinks we represent the school's pride." Jordan snorted. "He's been kissing your ass since freshman year." Cole nodded. "Exactly. So I told him, if something happens, if she lashes out again, we need support." Bryce leaned forward. "And what did he say?" Cole's grin widened into a monster's smile. "He said he trusts my judgment, and if there's any incident, tomorrow, he'll make sure the school handles it quickly and decisively." The implication was clear. Hale would side with Cole, no matter what actually happened. A stunned silence filled the room before turning into a low rumble of excitement. Jordan punched Cole's shoulder. "Bro, you're insane." Bryce laughed breathlessly. "So she doesn't stand a chance." Cole grabbed a basketball and bounced it hard against the floor, the echo filling the cramped room with violent finality. "Tomorrow," he declared, his voice dripping with triumph, "he will kneel before me." The team erupted with cheers, slaps, and ugly confidence. But in the corner, where the flickering bulb cast distorted shadows, the darkness seemed to shift, almost like it was warning them. They had no idea that tomorrow would not follow Cole's script, not even close. By the time the bell rang for literature class, the atmosphere in 11B felt poisoned, thick with anticipation, buzzing with cruel excitement. Students filled the room faster than usual, whispering and craning their necks toward the doorway like spectators waiting for the main act of a twisted performance. Amina entered quietly, clutching her bag, unaware that the stage had already been set against her. Her desk, the one tucked neatly near the window, was a wreck. Pages from her notebooks were torn to shreds and scattered across the floor like confetti for a celebration she never agreed to. Her pencils were snapped in half. Her textbook had crude drawings all over the cover, and the surface of her desk, someone had smeared it with thick black marker. "Animal." Amina stared at the destruction in silence. Behind her, Bryce snickered, holding his phone up to record her reaction. Jordan whispered loudly enough for the room to hear, "Guess she won't be catching any erasers today." Cole Barnes stepped forward, planting himself right in front of the podium with the kind of swagger only a boy convinced of his own power could carry. "Everyone, welcome to Judgment Day," he announced mockingly. "Hope you brought popcorn." The class broke into laughter. Amina bent down to pick up one of her torn pages. The handwriting was smudged, the corner ripped off. She held it delicately, almost reverently, like it was something alive. Then Cole clicked his tongue. "Look at her face, man. Like she didn't expect this." His smile stretched lazily. "This is what happens when you act like you're better than everyone." "Enough." Mr. Duncan stepped between them, trying to maintain control. "Cole, sit down. This is harassment." Cole raised both hands innocently. "Harassment? I haven't even touched her today." Bryce laughed under his breath. "Yet," Mr. Duncan glared. "I said sit." The classroom door swung open. Principal Hale strode in, his expression stiff and unreadable, his suit pressed perfectly as always. His eyes scanned the room, briefly landing on Cole with what looked like silent acknowledgment before shifting toward Amina. "Mr. Duncan exhaled in relief. "Thank you, sir. I was just about to report." Hale cut him off. "I heard there was an incident involving the new girl again." A hush fell over the room. Cole smirked. Bryce raised his phone a little higher. Amina's fingers tightened around the torn page. Mr. Duncan frowned. "Sir, Amina has done nothing wrong. Her belongings were vandalized. This is—" Hale lifted a hand sharply. "Mr. Duncan, please. I've already received several complaints about her behavior," the class murmured. Ruby, from the back row, stiffened. Amina froze. Hale continued, his tone cold. "She's been disruptive, provocative. Several students said she's been instigating conflict." Cole looked down, hiding a grin. Jordan elbowed Bryce. Amina blinked slowly, absorbing the false accusations without flinching. Mr. Duncan shook his head in disbelief. "Sir, that's simply not true. I've seen—" "Enough!" Hale snapped. Louder now. "Amina, this chaos follows you. Whatever is happening," he gestured to the ruined desk. "You clearly provoked it." A ripple of shock spread across the class. Ruby stood abruptly. "That's a lie. She hasn't done anything." Hale's gaze sharpened. "Sit down, Miss Turner." But Ruby's voice trembled with fury. "You're protecting them. Everyone can see it." Cole leaned forward in his seat, enjoying every second. Hale adjusted his tie and spoke with chilling authority. "Amina Lewis is becoming a disruption, and if this continues, there will be consequences." Amina lifted her head slowly. For the first time, she wasn't looking at the torn papers, or the vandalized desk, or the hateful faces around her. She looked straight at Hale, then at Cole. Her eyes, once soft, restrained, had transformed into something fierce and cutting. They held no fear now, only clarity, only resolve. A shiver moved through the room. Cole muttered, "What the hell?" The classroom collectively sensed it. The shift, the storm gathering behind her calm expression. Her stare said one thing: enough. And the moment that silent line was crossed, the explosion everyone had been waiting for was about to ignite. The classroom was no longer a classroom, it was chaos. Chairs tipped sideways, crumpled papers littering the floor, students pressed against the walls as if trying to avoid being pulled into the storm that was gathering in the center of 11B. Cole Barnes felt the weight of every eye in the room. He felt humiliated, cornered, defied, and nothing in his arrogant world stung more than defiance. Amina stood quietly beside her vandalized desk, her breathing slow and controlled. Her expression was unreadable. Too calm for someone being threatened, too steady for someone supposed to be scared. "Enough," she'd said with her eyes moments earlier. And for Cole, that was an unforgivable sin. He lunged. The movement was sudden, violent, born purely out of the wounded pride of a boy who had been the king of Crestwood High for years. He reached for her hair, hand open and claw-like, intending to drag her down in front of everyone. "Amina!" Ruby cried from the back, but her voice was swallowed instantly. Time fractured, every motion slowed. Cole's fingers were inches from Amina's curls when her body moved. Not in panic, not in flinching terror, but with explosive precision. Amina bent her knees. Her foot pivoted. Her body spun. Then she jumped. Her legs swept upward in a perfect high arc, clean, sharp, controlled. A spinning kick that cut through the air with a sound like a blade slicing cloth. Her foot connected squarely with Cole's chest. The impact wasn't messy or wild. It was powerful, directed, unmistakably trained. Cole's breath left him in a single guttural sound as he was lifted off the ground and thrown backward. His body sailed several feet before crashing into a cluster of desks, sending metal legs screeching across the floor. The entire class gasped in unison. Someone dropped their phone. Another student let out a scream. A boy near the windows whispered, "No way! No way!" Cole groaned, clutching his chest, eyes wide with disbelief and pain. Amina landed lightly, knees bent, balance perfect, like she'd done this 1,000 times before. The silence was absolute. Even the hallway outside seemed frozen. Ruby staggered forward, her hand trembling against her mouth. Who are you?" she whispered, voice cracking with shock. Amina didn't answer immediately. Her fists weren't raised. She wasn't breathing hard. She looked almost sad, as if she regretted that this moment had ever needed to happen. Then her voice came, low, steady, and colder than anything she'd said since arriving at Crestwood High. "I'm not," she stepped toward Cole, who scrambled backward instinctively, "the kind of person any of you get to trample." Her last word hit the air like another strike. Students recoiled as if the ground itself had shifted beneath them. The quiet new girl wasn't weak. She wasn't strange. She wasn't prey. She was something entirely different, something none of them had ever expected, something powerful. The class erupted after a beat of stunned silence. What was that kick? She's like a fighter. She knocked Cole out in one move. Holy crap. No way that's normal. No way. Phones lifted again, catching shaky footage of Cole struggling to stand up, his ego shattered so violently it was almost visible on his face. Ruby reached Amina's side, her voice barely above a whisper. "Amina, they're going to explode over this. You know that, right?" Amina exhaled, gaze locking onto Cole with weary finality. "I know," she murmured, "but I warned them." As Cole finally staggered upright, his face twisted into something dark and hateful. He spat on the floor. "You're dead. Dead. You hear me?" But before he could charge again, Bryce stepped forward, fury burning in his eyes. He raised his phone like a weapon. "No," he snarled. "She doesn't get the last move. Not today." And with that, the next wave of danger rose behind him, because Bryce would never allow Cole to lose, and what he did next would ignite the entire school. The classroom of 11B had become a battlefield. Desks scattered, chairs overturned, students crushed against the walls as if the floor itself were unstable. Phones hovered in shaking hands, each one live-streaming the chaos to dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of eyes across Crestwood High. Cole wasn't the only one shaking with rage. Bryce slammed his phone into his pocket, chest heaving as he stepped toward Amina. His pride, his status, his confidence as part of the untouchable basketball circle had just been shattered along with Cole's ego. "You think you can humiliate us?" Bryce spat. "You think you're better than us?" Jordan joined him, cracking his knuckles. "Let's take her down." Amina didn't move. She didn't raise her hands. Her expression wasn't angry. It was patient, controlled, unsettling in its stillness. Students yelled warnings, some out of fear, some out of excitement. "Bryce, don't—" "Jordan, man, stop. Somebody get a teacher. She's gonna destroy you guys." But Bryce and Jordan didn't care. Together, they rushed her. Two athletes, both taller, heavier, and trained in raw physical aggression. They expected her to panic. They expected screams, scrambling, retreat. They expected her to look like prey. But Amina didn't retreat. She stepped forward, straight toward the attack. Bryce's arm shot out first, aiming to grab her shoulder. Amina's body dipped under his reach so quickly the motion blurred, her hand sliding behind his elbow with surgical precision. Her foot planted, her hips turned, and with a simple, precise twist, Bryce lost his balance. His body lurched sideways, arms flailing as he crashed into a desk, sending it clattering violently across the floor. Jordan barely had time to react. "What?" He lunged, trying to wrap his arms around her waist to pin her down. But Amina rotated, one smooth pivot, faster than instinct, and his grip closed around empty air. She caught his wrist mid-swing. Jordan froze, eyes wide. Amina's hand tightened just enough. Not painful, but firm, unyielding. She shifted her weight, turned her heel, and executed a textbook hip rotation takedown. Jordan's feet left the ground for a split second before he hit the floor hard on his back, breath knocked out of him. The class exploded in disbelief. "No way, no way." She took both of them, both. "This girl isn't normal. What is she?" Ruby covered her mouth, trembling. "They won't stop," she whispered. "They're going to keep pushing until something breaks." Amina took a step back, her breathing even, her body returning to a relaxed stance, as if her movements weren't born of rage, but of discipline, training, memory. Bryce stumbled to his feet, shaking with fury and humiliation. He snatched his phone from the floor, thumb trembling as he unlocked it. "You're finished," he snarled. "Everyone's watching." Everyone. He wasn't wrong. Across campus, down hallways, inside other classrooms, on the cafeteria screens. Dozens of live streams broadcast the fight in real time. Then it happened. A single clip, only 5 seconds long, capturing the exact moment Amina flipped Jordan effortlessly, went viral. The views jumped from 30 to 120 to 400, then 1,000, then 3,000. Students across the school shouted in shock, sending waves of noise echoing through the hallways. Teachers began rushing toward 11B. A crowd formed outside the classroom door like a growing storm, and then the parents found it. Notifications lit up phones all around the school as the clip jumped to the Crestwood Parent Community Group. One mother's comment appeared first. "Who is this girl? Why is my son watching a fight in class?" Another followed. "Where are the teachers? This school is out of control." Then, "I'm calling the principal right now." In 11B, Bryce's phone buzzed wildly in his hand. Jordan's eyes widened as he gasped for breath. "Bro, the views. Look at the views. This is blowing up," a student by the window whispered, voice trembling. "This school is about to explode. This school is about to explode." And the explosion arrived faster than anyone expected, crashing into the classroom door with unstoppable force. Principal Hale's office was suffocatingly quiet, too quiet for a room filled with so many raised voices outside. The blinds were half drawn, allowing only thin slashes of afternoon light to cut across the polished desk. On the wall, a framed certificate of excellence in leadership seemed to glare down at everyone present like a silent, judgmental spectator. Amina sat in the chair farthest from Hale's desk, hands folded tightly in her lap. Ruby sat beside her, shoulders shaking with residual fear and fury. Mr. Duncan stood near the corner, arms stiff at his sides, as if he was holding himself back from speaking too soon. Across from them sat the school's disciplinary committee, 4 stern adults with clipboards ready, pens poised like weapons. Then Hale entered. He shut the door behind him with a heavy click, smoothing his tie before taking a seat with forced calm. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," he began, voice dripping with manufactured authority. "We have a very serious matter to address. Amina Lewis has repeatedly disrupted the school environment and today physically assaulted multiple students." Mr. Duncan exhaled sharply. "That is not what happened." Hale raised a hand. "Mr. Duncan, please. The evidence is overwhelming." Ruby opened her mouth, trembling. "What evidence? Bryce's chopped-up live stream? You never—" Hale cut her off as well, sharper this time. "There were no functioning cameras in that classroom. We cannot rely on fragmented student videos." Ruby's eyes blazed. "Convenient," one of the committee members cleared her throat. "Principal Hale, in the absence of full video footage, we must rely on teacher reports." Hale nodded, turning to face the group. "And as far as I'm aware, Amina has been the common factor in every disturbance she's been involved in." Ruby slammed her hands onto the table. "That's a lie." Hale leaned back, clasping his hands. "Miss Turner, you are not helping your friend by becoming emotional." Mr. Duncan finally stepped forward. "Sir, the girl was defending herself." "Against who?" Hale snapped. "The entire class? Do not insult this committee, Duncan." For a moment, silence fell again. Amina stared down at her hands. She had been through hearings like this before, adults with power, boys with status, a room stacked against her from the start. But today, something was different. Ruby stood abruptly. "I'm done letting you twist this." From her backpack, she pulled out a thin silver flash drive. Hale stiffened instantly. Mr. Duncan blinked. "Ruby, what is that?" "A backup," she said, voice trembling but steady. "A copy from the classroom cameras. Before someone tried to delete the footage." Hale's head jerked up. "What are you talking about? Those cameras malfunctioned." Ruby smiled coldly. "Maybe one did, but not all of them." She plugged the drive into the office laptop. The screen flickered. Then the footage played. The room held its breath. First clip. Cole approaching Amina, shoving her hard, twice, before any of the fights broke out. The class recoiled in shock. Bryce laughed. Jordan blocked the hallway door. Second clip. Earlier that same morning, Hale entering classroom 11B quietly. He walked straight to the camera mounted in the far corner and switched it off. Gasps exploded through the disciplinary committee. One member covered her mouth. Another dropped her pen. Mr. Duncan stared at Hale with disbelief. Ruby whispered, voice shaking with righteous anger. You knew what they were planning. You protected them. Hale's face drained of color. This is taken out of context. Out of context? Another committee member barked. You shut off a security camera during a bullying incident. The room buzzed. Shock, outrage, betrayal pulsing in every direction. Amina finally lifted her eyes. They were calm, too calm, and they cut right through Hale. He concealed school bullying? Ruby said, each word like a blade. The committee turned on Hale with the force of a tidal wave, and yet the truth revealed here was only the beginning. The consequences, deeper, darker, were waiting just outside this room. The hallway outside the school infirmary was quiet, eerily quiet compared to the storm erupting elsewhere on campus. Students crowded far down the corridor, whispering about viral clips, disciplinary hearings, and the sudden shift of power inside Crestwood High. But here, near the closed infirmary door, it felt like the world had slowed into a fragile stillness. Ruby guided Amina to a bench, her hands shaking from everything that had unfolded. Amina sat carefully, staring at the floor tiles, her breathing steady but heavy. As if each inhale carried a memory she wished she could leave buried, Ruby knelt beside her. Are you hurt? Do you need to see the nurse? Amina shook her head. I'm fine, physically. Ruby hesitated. But something's wrong. I can feel it. For a long moment, Amina said nothing. Her fingers traced the seam of her sleeve, searching for strength in silence. Then, finally, she spoke. Soft, controlled, but weighted with years of locked-away truth. There's something I haven't told you, she whispered. Ruby leaned in, concern deepening. Amina swallowed. Before I came here, before any of this, I was part of a program, a training program for kids who grew up around violence. She paused, steadying her voice. A non-profit that sheltered children who had experienced abuse. They taught us how to defend ourselves, how to survive. Ruby's breath hitched. Amina, they trained us physically, mentally, taught us how to read danger, how to react before a threat lands. Her eyes clouded. Not to fight, never to attack, but to protect ourselves when no one else would. Ruby sat beside her on the bench. Why didn't you tell anyone? Amina's gaze dropped to the faint scars on her knuckles. Because if people know, they look at you differently. They think you're dangerous, broken. They expect you to be violent, even when you're trying so hard not to be. A quiet ache filled her chest as she exhaled. My brother didn't survive the violence we grew up in, she said softly. That's why I promised myself I'd never use what I learned unless I had no choice. Ruby's eyes glistened. Today wasn't your fault. Amina shook her head slowly. Today, they pushed me to the edge. I didn't want any of this. I tried to stay quiet, to stay small, but they kept pushing and pushing until staying silent meant letting them hurt me again. Her voice cracked, not from fear, but from exhaustion. I don't want to be that girl, she whispered. The one who fights, the one who has to defend herself. I just wanted to have a normal day in a normal school. Ruby reached forward and took Amina's hands, squeezing them firmly. Listen to me. Her voice was steady despite the tears forming in her eyes. You're not wrong. The school is the one that's wrong. Amina blinked, taken aback by the fierceness in Ruby's tone. Ruby continued. You didn't attack anyone. You survived them. And now? Now the truth is coming out. People need to know what they did to you. Amina looked away, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. People will judge me. They always do. Ruby stood, pulling her gently to her feet. Maybe, but they're also going to hear the truth, whether they want to or not. She pointed toward the end of the hallway where dozens of students were gathering, phones in hand. Because the whole school already knows something happened, Ruby said. And what they learn next is going to change everything. And within minutes, Amina's past and the truth of what she endured would spread through Crestwood High like wildfire. By late afternoon, Crestwood High's peaceful courtyard had transformed into a boiling cauldron of noise, panic, and outrage. Students clustered in tight circles, phones raised like glowing torches as they replayed the viral clips again and again. Amina dodging Bryce, flipping Jordan, launching the spinning kick that sent Cole crashing across the room. Every angle, every slow-motion replay, every gasp captured and circulated. Within an hour, the videos had escaped the confines of the school. Local news pages picked them up. Violence at Crestwood High, student claims school fails to protect minorities. Principal under fire after camera tampering allegations. A drone camera from a small news outlet circled above the parking lot. 2 reporters stood outside the front gates, trying to capture interviews with anyone who would talk. Parents began arriving in clusters, angry, confused, demanding answers. Some barged into the administrative building, shouting at staff behind the counters. How were fights allowed to escalate like this? Why didn't anyone stop those boys? Where was security? Why is my child texting me about someone being assaulted in a classroom? Principal Hale tried to calm them, his voice tense, his posture strained, but parents pushed back fiercely. No amount of carefully worded excuses could compete with the raw, unfiltered footage blasted across every screen. On the opposite side of the courtyard, students gathered into a swelling crowd around the flagpole. Dozens of them, many who had stayed silent for years, finally spoke out. "That's Cole. He's been bullying people forever. He smashed a kid's locker last year, but Hale didn't punish him. He made fun of my cousin's accent. Nobody believed us. He only gets away with it because he plays basketball. My brother transferred schools because of them." Voices overlapped, rising in volume like a wave cresting before the crash. Ruby stood at the edge of the crowd, gripping Amina's hand tightly as she listened to student after student speak. Some had tears in their eyes, some were shaking with years of pent-up frustration, but all of them were finally saying the quiet part out loud. Amina watched them silently, her expression a mixture of disbelief and something quieter, sadder. She had spent the last few hours being pulled from one office to another, questioned, analyzed, judged, and now the whole school was shouting her name. But this time, not in mockery, this time in solidarity. News vans pulled into the parking lot. A cluster of microphones appeared near the main entrance. Police cruisers idled by the curb, officers speaking quietly with administrators. Helicopter footage from a local station broadcast overhead, the thrum of its blades echoing across the courtyard. A senior girl with a megaphone stepped up beside Ruby. "We're not leaving until the administration takes action," she declared. "Not just for Amina, but for every kid who's been ignored." The crowd roared in agreement. Amina felt Ruby lean into her shoulder. "See?" Ruby whispered. "You're not alone anymore." But Amina's gaze drifted toward the main office windows. Behind the blinds, silhouettes moved quickly, scrambling, arguing, panicking. For the first time, the power imbalance had shifted. The school was no longer protecting Cole. The school was no longer shielding Hale. The school was no longer silent. And with the pressure of parents, students, and the media closing in from every direction, Crestwood High would have no choice but to act. The great auditorium of Crestwood High, normally used for choir concerts and award ceremonies, had never felt so heavy, so suffocating, so charged with expectation. Hundreds of chairs filled the space, but today only the front rows were occupied. Teachers, committee members, reporters, and furious parents, whose faces were streaked with emotion. A long wooden table sat on the elevated stage. Behind it, the disciplinary panel. In front of it, 3 chairs, one for Amina, one for Cole, and one, now empty, for Principal Hale. The murmurs began even before the hearing officially started. "Where's Hale? They said he was suspended. Did you hear? Good. He let this go on for years. My daughter was scared to come to school because of Cole's group. When the doors finally opened, all eyes turned. Cole Barnes walked inside, flanked by two of his teammates. His face was bruised, not from Amina's kick alone, but from the humiliation of the past 24 hours. The swagger was gone. The arrogance was fractured. Only anger remained, and desperation. He took his seat, folding his arms defensively as whispers rippled through the room. A minute later, Amina entered with Ruby by her side. Students watching from the back sat up straighter, parents leaned forward, and the committee members exchanged subtle nods. Amina didn't look scared, just tired, aware of the weight pressing down on her, but refusing to bend beneath it. The chairwoman of the disciplinary board spoke first. "We are here to review the violent incident in classroom 11B and determine responsibility for the escalation." Cole leaned into his microphone. "Responsibility? I was defending myself." The room erupted with disbelieving scoffs. Cole pressed on quickly, sensing his advantage slipping. "She attacked me. You all saw the clips. She kicked me across the room. She's unstable, dangerous. I was scared for my life." Amina closed her eyes briefly, absorbing every word with the calm of someone who had lived through far worse accusations. Ruby took her hand beneath the table, but the chairwoman raised a hand. "Mr. Barnes, several videos show you and your friends initiating the confrontation." Cole's jaw tightened. "Those videos don't show the whole story. Mr. Duncan stood abruptly. "Then show the whole story." He stepped forward, holding the flash drive Ruby had provided earlier. The auditorium screens flickered to life. Silence fell like a thick curtain. The footage began. Cole shoving Amina inside the classroom, Jordan blocking exits, Bryce mocking her, Cole attempting the slap, Cole pushing her again, Hale entering the room hours earlier, switching off a camera. Gasps ricocheted across the auditorium. One mother rose to her feet. "He turned off the camera? He tried to hide this?" Another parent yelled, "How long has this been happening?" Cole's face drained of color as the truth carved itself into every screen. The chairwoman turned toward the staff section. "Principal Hale has been placed on immediate suspension pending investigation." A roar of satisfaction swept through the parents and students. Cole stood abruptly, shoving his chair back. "This is ridiculous. I was the victim. She planned this." But no one believed him anymore. Not after the footage. Not after the testimonies. Not after his lies collapsed under absolute evidence. Amina looked up at him, not with anger, not with triumph, but with a devastating sadness. "You hurt people because you could," she said softly, "and now you can't anymore." Cole's breathing hitched. For the first time, he looked small, defeated, and as Cole's downfall echoed through the hall, the rest of the bullies felt the ground shaking beneath them. Their time was coming, and there would be no escape. By the time the sun began dipping behind the rooftops of Crestwood High, the halls were almost empty. Yet the campus still buzzed with whispers, footsteps, and the distant rumble of reporters packing their equipment into vans. The storm of the day was ending, but its aftermath hung thick in the air. Inside the administrative office, the atmosphere was starkly different. The blinds were half closed, casting long shadows across the conference table where the final decisions had been printed, signed, and stamped with urgency. Amina sat quietly in one of the chairs, Ruby beside her, while Mr. Duncan stood protectively near the door. Members of the disciplinary board gathered around with an air of solemnity. Then the door opened. Cole entered, flanked by his remaining teammates. But this time the swagger was gone. His face was pale, his posture slumped, his eyes dark with the realization that everything he had built his identity upon was crumbling. Behind him, the district officer assigned to review school violence cases took notes on a clipboard. The chairwoman cleared her throat. "We have reached a conclusion." Cole's jaw clenched, but he didn't speak. The room held its breath. Cole Barnes, Bryce Cooper, Jordan Hale, and 3 other members of the basketball team will be given long-term suspension, effective immediately. Her voice was firm, yet heavy. In addition, due to the severity of the harassment, physical aggression, and recorded intimidation, local authorities will pursue legal proceedings. A collective gasp spread through the room. Cole's teammates looked at him with wide, frightened eyes, as though they were only now realizing how deeply they had followed him into ruin. But the chairwoman wasn't finished. As for Principal Hale, she continued, he will be placed on indefinite administrative leave pending investigation for negligence, bias, and evidence tampering. The superintendent's office will take over his duties. A murmur rippled through the staff members standing along the back wall. Hale had once seemed untouchable, protected by reputation and favoritism. Now his fall was complete. Cole finally snapped. "This is insane. She kicked me. She attacked us." The chairwoman leaned forward. "Mr. Barnes, the evidence shows you provoked and escalated the events. You and your group created a hostile environment. You lied, you silenced others, and you used the school's protection to continue harming classmates." Cole looked like he might collapse. This can't be happening. But it was. Amina watched quietly. No gloating, no satisfaction, just a tired exhale as if she'd been holding her breath for days. Then the chairwoman stood and turned to her. "Amina Lewis," she said softly, "on behalf of Crestwood High, we sincerely apologize for what you endured. From students and from staff members who failed to protect you." A ripple of emotion crossed Ruby's face. Mr. Duncan lowered his head with respect. Amina blinked slowly, absorbing the words she never expected to hear. "Thank you," she whispered. Simple, honest, almost fragile. The chairwoman continued, "Counseling, tutoring, and support services will be provided to you, and you will face no disciplinary action." Cole laughed bitterly. "So she gets rewarded? While we—" "Enough!" the officer snapped. "This meeting is over." Cole's voice died in his throat. As the boys were escorted out, one by one, the weight of justice pressed down around them. A long overdue reckoning they could no longer outrun. Amina watched them go, not with vengeance, with finality, the kind that comes after surviving something that should never have happened. Ruby squeezed her hand gently. "It's over," she murmured. "Or, it's starting to be." Amina nodded. And with the darkness receding at last, the final chapter of healing, real, lasting healing, was waiting just beyond the doorway. A week after the tribunal, Crestwood High felt like an entirely different world. The clouds that had once seemed to cling to the campus like a curse were gone, replaced by a bright spring sun that spilled across the newly repainted courtyard. The broken benches had been fixed. The graffiti near the gym had been washed away. Even the cracked pavement by the basketball court had been replaced with fresh concrete. It wasn't just the building that had changed, the atmosphere had. Students walked with lighter steps. Teachers smiled more easily. And whispers of fear had shifted into a hum of hope. At the center of this transformed landscape walked Amina Lewis, not the girl who once slipped quietly into classrooms, head down, shoulders tight, trying to take up as little space as possible. No, this Amina walked down the hallway with the quiet confidence of someone who had survived a battlefield and come out stronger. Her posture was tall, her eyes steady. Students greeted her with nods, smiles, small gestures of respect. Some whispered her name in awe. Others approached just to say thank you, because Amina had become something rare at Crestwood High, a symbol, not of violence, not of rebellion, but of resistance, of refusing to be crushed when the world tried to break her. Near the front steps, Ruby sprinted to catch up, her backpack bouncing wildly. "Amina, wait up!" Amina turned, the smallest smile touching her lips. Soft, genuine, warm. Ruby had hardly left her side since the tribunal ended. Their bond, forged through fear and fire, felt unshakable now. Ruby wasn't just a friend. She was family. "You're walking too fast," Ruby panted dramatically. "What happened to the quiet new girl who blended into walls?" Amina chuckled. "She's taking a break." Ruby looped an arm around hers. "Good. That girl needed to retire." They crossed the courtyard together. Several students approached, some nervously, some with bright enthusiasm, to thank Amina for standing up, to admit their guilt for staying silent, or simply to acknowledge the shift she had caused. A freshman girl stepped forward shyly. Thank you. Because of you, I told a teacher about someone who's been bullying me." Amina's expression softened. "That was brave." Ruby nudged her. "See? You're already changing lives." The school had even launched a new initiative, the Crestwood Peace Program, aimed at protecting students, improving reporting systems, and eliminating the long-standing culture of fear that had allowed boys like Cole to thrive. Posters advertising anti-bullying workshops lined the walls. Amina looked at one of the posters thoughtfully. There was an illustration of a hand holding another hand. Simple, hopeful. Ruby tilted her head. "You okay?" Amina exhaled slowly, letting the sunlight warm her face. "Yeah, I think I finally am." They reached the main hallway, the same stretch of floor where she had once been cornered, mocked, threatened. Now it felt open, bright, hers. A group of students parted instinctively as she passed, not from fear, but respect. Amina walked through them without hesitation, without folding inward, without shrinking herself. Her steps were light, her head was high, her spirit unbroken. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like a survivor hiding in the shadows. She felt like a warrior stepping into the light. Ruby squeezed her arm gently. "So, what now?" Amina smiled, her voice calm and sure. "No one gets to decide who I am, not anymore." She paused at the end of the hallway, sunlight pooling at her feet, and whispered the truth she had earned. Through pain, courage, and resilience, no one has the right to decide your worth except you. The words echoed softly behind her as she stepped forward, not just into another day at school, but into her future. And just like that, the girl they mocked for her silence became the voice that shook an entire school. Amina didn't just defend herself. She exposed a system built to protect bullies and punish the innocent. Cole lost his throne, Hale lost his mask, and Crestwood High finally opened its eyes. But the real question is, if you were standing in that classroom, would you have spoken up or stayed quiet like everyone else? If this story hit you, drop a comment, smash that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and subscribe so you never miss the next twist.